Hello everyone. Today we talk about Britain defeated China in the Opium War, yet totally failed in Afghanistan. How do you think about it? Before we start, let's see our portrait. Here we can see a very exhausted man riding a very exhausted horse, similar like a Spanish Don Quixote. Also similar like a lonely traveler in the remote, and a city looms in the far. The man on the portrait was William Brereton, a surgeon in the British Army, and the city in the far is Jalalabad in Afghanistan, where garrisoned the British troops. The Brereton came for a message that about 20,000 British troops and their family members withdrew from Kabul and had been ambushed in the mountain areas, and all of them were killed, captured as prisoners, or sold as slaves. Only the surgeon himself survived from the battle and escaped for the message, which happened in January 1842. Let's see what happened in China at the same time. In 1840, there occurred the Sino-British Opium War, and the British sent 16 battleships and over 4,000 infantry for the military expedition, and overwhelmed the Mandarin Qing Empire of China, which was a great shame to China, with 900,000 troops during the war. In August 1842, the Qing government was forced to sign the Nanjing Treaty, with ceding of Hong Kong and tremendous reparations. And since then, a historical conclusion was given: whoever lags behind will surely be punished. And it was inevitable that the isolated Qing lost the race to the advanced Western world. Yet one issue is worthy thinking: that the British Army invaded Afghanistan from India and suffered a hard resistance in a small mountainous country. Afghanistan is in Central Asia with territory of 650,000 square kilometers, similar size to that of the Ukraine. Most of the areas in Afghanistan are mountains and plateaus, without good farming land nor rich natural resources. It had been one of the poorest countries. Yet the position of Afghanistan is vital. It had been called as the heart of Asia. To the north, Central Asia and Russia. To the east is China. The south are India and Pakistan. To the west are Iran and Iraq. In ancient times, here was also a part of China's Silk Road. Due to the key position of Afghanistan, it had been a place of military control from Alexander the Great to the expansion of the Arab Empire to the east, from the invasion of Mongol Empire to the rule of the Persians. It had been under control of foreign powers. Until 1747, a kingdom of Afghanistan was established. Simultaneously, Afghanistan is a country with many ethnic groups, greatly influenced with traditional tribes and large families, with Islam as a law and a guidance to the daily life. Afghanistan experienced different periods from a kingdom, republic, to the Islam Emirate, without finding a proper way for development. For grabbing of Central Asia with Russia, that in March 1839, the British invaded Afghanistan from Poland parts and took over Kandahar very soon, and then occupied Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, ousting the Dost Muhammad, the king of Afghanistan, with Shuair Shah Durrani, set up a new government and British control. Yet the British troops had been suffered a continual resistance and counter attacks busy in dealing with the ambushes and skirmishes and with low morale. In January 1842, about 4,500 British and Indian soldiers and their family members withdrew from Kabul to the east Jalalabad, and on the way in the mountains, they were ambushed and totally overwhelmed by Afghan militants and killed, captured, or sold as slaves, except William Brenton. The surgeon survived and escaped for sending the news. And later in 1878 and in 1919, Great Britain engaged in another 2 military operations to Afghanistan and were defeated as the first time. The strong British Empire lost to the small and weak Afghanistan, which was really a shame, in fact. In history, besides the 3 British invasions, also the 2 big powers, the Soviet and America, also sent massive forces here and were dragged in the mire and failed in their missions and evacuated in a hurry. And Afghanistan won the name of Graveyard of Empires. For access to India to the south, in December 1979, the Soviet invaded Afghanistan with 100,000 troops and controlled the big cities. Yet in large areas in the mountain countryside, broke out resistance against the Russians and made the war last for 10 years. During the war, America and Saudi Arabia provided weapons and equipment and financial assistance to the resistant armies and trained large groups of anti-government soldiers, the Taliban, and also the Bin Laden's Al-Qaeda. After paying heavy prices, the Soviets withdrew since February 1989, and the war totally cost the Soviet Union for $20 billion, with casualties of 50,000. And meanwhile, the Afghans also died 1.3 million people, and about 5 million civilians became refugees abroad. The war in Afghanistan tremendously crippled the power of the Soviet and speed up its collapse. In October 2001, the America engaged anti-terrorism war on Afghanistan and maneuvered military attacks on Taliban government and Al-Qaeda. Military victories had been achieved very soon, and Bin Laden was killed in May 2011, yet America was deeply trapped in Afghanistan. And since July 2011, US Army gradually withdrew from there, though Taliban anti-government forces still controlled half of the territories. In February 2020, Trump administration reached peace agreement with Taliban, promising US Army that it will reduce to 8,600 from 13,000 within 135 days and finished total withdrawal within 14 months. On July 2nd, 2021, its Americans evacuated from Bagram Airport in such a hurry, and leaving a large amount of weapons and equipment. In August 2021, the U.S. Department of Defense announced its completion of military withdrawal. While Kabul Airport was in such a great mess, it took 20 years for America in Afghanistan, spending about $2 trillion US dollars, and the US Army with 2,500 casualties. Yet the armed communists had made very big money, and Afghanistan was finally taken back by Taliban. A new Taliban updated to armed army from the traditional guerrillas due to the capture of the large amount of US weapons and equipment. The Afghans that can be called a nation of genuine warriors, for they are brave enough to fight against the superpower. Even if Afghanistan is a small country, they had first defeated the arrogant Great Britain for 3 times, and with guerrilla wars and attrition wars. And they had first the Soviet and the America, the two superpowers, to suffer great loss and to leave. Let's look back to the Sino-British Opium War with Mandarin Qing government. With such a big country and great population, and was totally overwhelmed. Without a great emperor or nor good general, China witnessed a complete failure. If Mao, the Grand Master of the guerrilla war, could be born a century earlier, then he would have driven away the British like what happened in Afghanistan. If without debacle of the Opium War, the future upheavals and the change of dynasties might be avoided. Yet, there is no if in history. Like water changes form, words, and have no formula. Know yourself, know your opponent, and to avoid being defeated. Look back history, and for better future, the sense of shame make you strong later. China is a country with spirit of persistence. It should also be a nation of warriors. The above is our talk today, and thank you very much for your joining in, and see you next time.